Thank you for coming out, and we appreciate you coming. Mother was awarded
Recording in progress.
Hingham Historian Award in 2022 when the pandemic was in what the pandemic was aware, so a lot of people couldn't go to see her get the award. She got the award for in discussing the Tutleville area, and so Tutleville is from the beginning of Ward Street and High Street, and it goes all the way down to the end to Margaret's park that's there. When I was working off my taxes for the town, I was in Andrea Young's office, and she said she was looking for historic people and places. And so I said, well, we're not listed on your roster here. And I said, we have been in Hingham since 1793, and probably earlier than that, because the Simpsons, which we're related to, were from Chappaquiddick, and they were shipbuilders and shoemakers, and they had their own entrepreneurial skills. And so the family owned at one time the whole street. And so at the beginning, the church that is there on the corner was a church that was built by our family. And I had to stroke it, it's a little hard to remember everything. But we're gonna discuss and show on the video. You're not gonna show the video?
Mm-mm.
So, in 1783, we supposedly had our own businesses, and we lived in the area. So, several times that we were living on Ward Street, we were burnt out because there's so many people. You heard of Rosewood, the thriving community in North Carolina or somewhere south, where people burned them out because they didn't want blacks in the neighborhood. Well, my great-great-grandmother, who was Henrietta, she did country days, and she would invite kids out from Boston to stay for a week with their parents. And one gentleman found out that they were having a lot of blacks come out, and he wasn't really enthused with that. So we were burnt out a lot of times on Ward Street in different developments where we lived. So my great-great-grandfather was a shipbuilder, shoemaker, and he did whittling, and he had several different businesses. And my mother used to talk about them having a honey wagon. Does anyone know what a honey wagon is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, to get rid of sewage.
Everybody had sewage
Right.
or outhouses.
Yes.
So they had to get rid of that. So he was a businessman that as we have inquired before. This is a gentleman from Stonehill College. This is Todd. What's your last name, Todd?
Gurnis. Gurnis.
Okay. And I had a diary of the family that lived in the house where I was. He was a volunteer fireman, and his name was Edward Russell Tuttle. And I found out later on through Todd that as he researched on the history that my great-great-grandfather also, Walter, was a volunteer fireman also. So the gentleman, Edward Russell, that lives in the house that I live in 111 Ward Street, we have information that he was a farmer, volunteer fireman, and he was instrumental in emptying the honey wagon. So, and they both were firemen, and the signs up on the street right now are the beginning of Ward Street to the end of Tutleville. And my mom was instrumental in making sure that the family was never forgotten and that the history of everything was recorded. And we have her on video. You're not playing the video? We had two gentlemen that was in our family that were in the Civil War, and that was Asher Freeman and Lewis Simpson. And they were in with Colonel Shaw and the Glory movie that was built by was filmed by them about their journey and the black soldiers that were in the segregated army that were part of our family. And if you go down to Central Street on the big plaque on City Hall, there are also other World War II veterans that were listed that were blacks from Hingham. Everything that Mommy had discussed and found out was on the video that I had planned to show that would validate the history. But there's so much history that I can't remember everything, but the barn that is behind me was also part of Tutleville. And my neighbor said to me that her father wanted to move to Tutleville because every Friday night there were parties in the barn. And he said everything that was happening on Ward Street. And so there were many parties and many dances that were also there that Mother has recorded, family pictures, and any discussion on any questions that anybody has for me. Andrea Young is here.
Hi.
That's the lady that helped me get all the signs up for Tutleville and the history. Mommy was a grandmother, a mother, great-grandmother, and she was an entrepreneur. She had a business. She had businesses in Hingham, Martha's Vineyard, Philadelphia, and also she had a business in Maine. She was a member here at First Baptist Church since she was 11, and she was didn't have a birth certificate until she was 17 because there were home births, and she was not recorded as being alive until she was 17. When she was 18, that she was going to get a marriage certificate, and they found that there was no records of her birth. So until 17 or 18, she didn't have a birth certificate. But they validated that she had gone to church here when she was baptized at age 11. And with her entrepreneurial skills, she started Toastmasters with
We called it International Training Communication.
it,
And it was a highlight of my life, and it was your mother that invited me.
okay.
And I had just
So-
finished,
Mommy brought that here, and they she had it here at the church, and she was very instrumental in getting speakers, and Nancy was a part of that group, and she belonged to the choir here. She did Bible study here. She was the first lady of Ward Street, because everybody who was in the neighborhood, that she was home with her business. So all the kids, if they got sick or anything, they would call mother and they bring her there to her home, and she would open up her house to everyone. And with the Toastmasters that she discussed, or she had, they had many activities that they did and they brought to the church here. And after I had the stroke, sometimes the memory
Just
gets
keep
short.
going, just keep going.
But
Share with them about the South Shore Citizens Club.
oh, mother was the South Shore. She had to belong to the South Shore Citizens Club. That was an organization that was formed by many of the blacks that were here in the community, because they wanted to do scholarships and fundraising for minority kids who didn't always have the possibility of having monies or aids to go to school. And she was instrumental in getting that organized, because my grandfather was Herbert Lindsay, and the GAR had asked him at the particular time to organize something for the black soldiers in the area. And so he was the ombudsman. And so that meant that he got all the black military that was in the area to have entertainment for that community. And so Mommy recorded all of this information that went back to when he organized that group together. So
Isn't that how your mother and they all met their husbands through
yeah,
that group?
stand up.
I'm the
My-
cousin Karen, but
My cousin Karen.
I've heard that my mother and the other sisters met their husbands through this organization. They attended those dances and whatever else they had, and met their husbands through that. We were called colored at that time. But anyway, my grandfather organized this group for them. He was part of the founders. There were like 3 different founders. And anyway, they were involved with that. Their family expanded, and I was one of the ones who got a scholarship from that group down the
South Shore,
road. So,
I got one too.
yeah.
South Shore Citizens
So
Club.
it carried on. It's no longer in existence, but we all remember, and I'm thankful that it existed.
This is my cousin Paula. My mother had 4 sisters. Karen is from the baby, Estelle. Paula's from, middle. And,
Colleen.
trying to think of,
Renee.
Renee and Cheryl, which are not here, but,
And JB.
JB.
JB,
Yeah. From
that
Hingham.
are a part of the family. But it's so much history right now that she had recorded, but, we were able through, Andrea Young, get the, signs up that were on the street, that says Tutleville and where it began. And, Mommy recorded all of that, and she got Hingham Historic Award for, combining all the history of the family since 1783.
My sons also, excuse me, Joyce, got scholarships.
From the South Shore Citizens Club.
And
Well-
one's a superintendent, and the other one is a police officer.
This is my friend Teresa,
Hi.
and my posse all around. You see some of my friends over here, they're right behind me. My friend Bessie and Wilma. And I'm glad you came out to support us in this endeavor. I had planned to do the video, and you could record the history that Mommy had founded about Tutleville.
If you go to YouTube and type in Tutleville, there's 5 series of videos that are on there, and you can watch them.
That's my legacy, Veronica. And any other questions
Yeah.
about? Yes.
I don't know if this is part of what you wanted to say, but I think I would be very interested in hearing about, Mother's connection to the Native American community.
Okay. My mother was Marion Lindsay, and her mother was Mabel Lindsay. Mabel Lindsay was a product of Walter Tuttle. And Walter was a product of Elijah and George. And they were Native American. And they came up from Chappaquiddick Island. And they settled here in this area because this was economically where people could find work, the shoe factories. And we supposedly were able to work at Stetson Shoe and Clap Shoe, and the Native Americans were supposedly related to Massasoit, and Massasoit was trying to organize all the native skills and keep the skills among the families, and to make sure that they could make a living at that. So the Simpsons were 20 kids, and then Eliza, and she married Eliza first, and they had 2 children, and he was a shipbuilder, and he went away to sea, and he never returned. When he didn't return, his brother came up from Attleboro to help Elijah take care of the 2 kids that she had. And from there, they had a total of 20 children. Then Elijah came back in a pickle barrel because he died at sea. And because when he died at sea and he never came back, the brother came up to help, and then they had 18 kids. And I'm a product of Henrietta. And Henrietta was the young lady who married James Tuttle. James King Tuttle, I think it was. And when he died, she did Country Days. And that's when she had blacks come out from the community to have a week they spent with people here in Hingham. And did I answer your question?
Yes, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your mother's Native American name and.
Okay. We had a naming ceremony after we found out that we were Native Americans. And Paula and, I don't know if Karen was there or not, but we had a naming ceremony. My name is Turquoise Waters, and my mother's name was Yellow Rose. And
I'm Songbird.
Oh, nice.
Well, stand up. What'd you say, Shakira?
I said, my name is Songbird.
Okay.
What's your name? That's appropriate.
Singing sparrows.
Singing Sparrow.
Oh, that's so good.
Mine is Faithful One.
Excuse me?
Faithful One.
Okay.
Very nice.
That's my legacy there, Veronica. And my cousin, Norma, which is Kyle's, and the Roundtrees.
Next to me.
I used to babysit for all the kids that were in the neighborhood. Any other questions about Tutleville?
What else happened at the naming ceremony?
Oh, well, at the naming ceremony, we had about 20 of us that were named. After, we had a chief that was one of the 20, a chief Yellow Feather. And she was one of the 20 descendants. And any other questions? Yes.
You said she had several businesses in
Yes.
Pennsylvania and Maine, and what were those businesses?
She was a cosmetologist,
They're all
Here's
beauty
what-
salons.
beauty salon. And she had a shop right there on Main Street on Circuit Ave,
Martha's Vineyard.
in Martha's Vineyard. And we lived there for the summer, one summer, and I used to be, we called the muffins in the restaurants in the area at that time, because I'm at a loss for it. But
They'll come back to you. Who are some of the people that she did hair for on the vineyard?
I just know she had three people that were working for her in the shop on Martha's Vineyard. It was on the Circuit Avenue.
I just have one thing to add to
Yeah.
that. One of my friends who lives on the vineyard, her father-in-law was the man that helped her come there and set up her shop.
McLaughlin?
No, his name is, oh my God, I forget, but anyway, he
Remember it.
Yeah.
I'll remember as soon as you
Yeah.
take those cameras off me.
Well,
But we also have, we're not just Wampanoag, Chappaquiddick, Wampanoag, we're also Nipmuc, because Walter's wife, Laura, was part of that tribe.
Vickers.
So they used to go for the powwows up in Western Mass. She was born where Sturbridge is now. It was, but anyway, she was born on the reservation up there, and that's how, I assume they met because he was doing the same kind of job as her father. So when they went to the powwows, he must have met her, and that's how he brought her back. So she was our great grandmother, great grandmother. It's all in the genealogy anyway.
And we participated in powwows in this area. I used to go as a little girl with my grandmother. We went to one that was, what was it, Taunton? The one that we went to?
Well, we've been to several.
Yeah, we've been to several. And they still have them to this day. And the family hosts reunions every year. And we still continue to do the naming ceremony. Last year and the year before last was the largest amount that we've had for people to come out and actually get named. And one of the ladies that was helping with the book of the genealogy when we were first putting this together is my mom's sorority sister. Come to find out, she was related as well. And as she did the research, so her family was about 23 of them, about 2 years that came up, and they all got named.
Wow.
So it's great. The Native Americans from the Cape came.
The chief.
The chief,
Yeah.
turns out he's our cousin,
Yeah.
chef the critic, and so now myself and my brothers and sisters are the last of our family that can be full-blooded heritage. And so it took me my whole life to find that out. So that's interesting. Jean now sits on the board.
And, well, we knew that just about everybody on the street was
Right.
family.
Yeah.
But we really didn't know exactly how.
Yeah, and
The
we thought it was
history.
always through my mom. It turned out it was through my dad.
Yeah.
So it was an awakening for us, and to be in my late 60s to find out my heritage. You
Yeah.
know, I was like, when we pulled
Because
up in the limo, I was shocked.
At the time, even though just about you just sold the house,
Yeah.
I used to babysit for all the kids, and I can't. Would you introduce yourself?
Nicholas Roundtree, Hingham, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Born and bred here, but I'm nothing but a crumb down the street.
And what is it that you're part of as you march around?
Oh, I'm in the Hingham militia, and we just celebrated the evacuation day in Boston. I don't know if you saw us on Channel 5 News. And we had a chance to do some marching in there.
Yeah.
And who was your mom? Some people.
Leah Camilla Roundtree.
We remember her.
Yeah.
Leah.
Yeah.
She was.
My father was Eugene, of many Eugenes.
Was
She has a name at the
steel.
library.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a stainless steel company for almost 60 years. And we hired almost everybody in the town. So I have people that still come up to me and tell me they lived at my house. I don't know these people. They'll come up and say, "Oh, yeah, I lived at your house." I said, "Who are you?" And these people to this day will tell me that my mother saved their life. And they don't want to tell me how she saved their life.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, my mother had no idea what I was doing. No.
Well, now
Yeah,
yes,
my mother was also one of the early founders of the Medco inner city school program. So they brought a lot of students from Boston to the area.
And we used to have the yard sales for the South Shore Citizens Club
Yeah.
at the parents' house.
Yeah, and we used to also host the walks and all that kind of stuff for years.
yeah. And she was very instrumental in the South Shore Citizens Club.
Yeah.
Camilla. And she was also with MECO. And Mummy was a host parent for MECO. And she had several young ladies to stay with her. And as I taught high school, in Brockton High School, one of my students had been there as I was away in college. And my mother was foster care or fostering MECO students. Sometimes they would stay with them, and so she was instrumental in doing that
Yeah.
also.
So one of the students from Hingham High School is now in charge of the Medco program at Hingham High School. Carol
Okay.
Perez. Yeah, so she came back and now she's promoting all that, you know. And my mother just had a dedication of the Foster School Library in her name. So that was a nice ceremony to do that.
So, as we lived in Tutleville, you know, Mommy had brought out a lot of the history, and she got the award.
She also got a citation from one of the congressman's office, and she also got another one for when she turned 100 years old. And she passed at 101.
Well, we thank the shepherds here, Pastor Jeff and Pastor Ludwig, who Mommy considered her sons. She was their mother. And every, when she was in the nursing home, in several of, she had the biggest birthday party ever, because so many people came out to honor her, and for the service that she had done in the community and around. She, Pastor Jeff would come every Sunday after church, and we'd have pizzas, and we'd laugh and joke about the history, and she would share the information with them. And with Pastor Ludwig, we had different Bible study cookouts, and she was instrumental in having them all out at the house with the different Bible studies and other situations that she called him her son from another mother. And same way with Jeff. She was, she would tell many different stories. She said that when she was in 6th grade, that she was told that she had to learn the Gettysburg dress. And she said, because the family was poor, she said she had to work in the cafeteria to work off and to have her meals. And so she knew that she was going to have to, you know, go down to the cafeteria, so she wouldn't learn the Gettysburg dress, but she said she learned it anyway. So at 100 and some years old, she would recite the Gettysburg Address. So,
Really, months before she died, she still recited.
but she said she learned it anyway. She said as she got to get up to go to the cafeteria to work, she said, "Miss Lindsay, would you like to recite the Gettysburg Address before you leave?" And she recited it, and from then on, she would know it by heart. And she would, sometimes when we were at the nursing home, she would recite it for
Every birthday.
some of her birthdays, or she would still know it, and I don't know it to this day.
But it is in the recordings, when they did the documentary, she did come, she did do it during the recording, so it's on YouTube under Tutleville.
She also was, when we lived in the South for a while, because my mother met my father. She said she knew him 2 weeks, and he said he was interested in her, and so he told her he'd come back for her. And so they were married. They knew each other for 2 weeks, and they were married for 59 years.
Oh, wow.
So, and she was, she did the Bible study. What did, Pastor, what was it, Bible study that she did?
Yeah, she participated and she also led, but she especially was involved in, I think, arranging for the women's fellowship at the time. And as I remember, they used to call themselves the Widow's Mite.
Yeah.
because there was the women of the church who had lost her husband, and they had a very tight fellowship, and Marion was definitely involved with that. And again, social, and back in the day when you had a pool at your house and above ground pool that people would get together for picnics and during the summer, and a place of social and pulling things together, that's for sure. And one memory that I have is my wife and I were able to make arrangements, and my mother-in-law moved in. We had alteration to our house, and we had a mother-in-law apartment. And one of the highlights of Norma's week or month, I don't know how often she went, but as often as she could, but she went to Marion's Beauty Nook on Ward Street. And my mother-in-law came from southern Maine, and so where Bob and Marion had lived in Portsmouth, I don't know if that was the connection. All I know is Norma always enjoyed yucking it up with Marion, and she always came home cheerful afterwards.
I know
So
that.
This is Laura and Al Ross.
I,
They was members of the South Shore Citizens Club,
Right.
and they could tell you a little about how
Once they get
just
settled.
coming in, but come on in.
Okay.
If we have any other people that would like to share memories about my grandmother, and then we will serve some food and have Pastor Jeff play some songs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There's
She
so
wants to
much
get.
history.
She wants to give a memory.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yep.
Well, I just like to say that in my circumstances, I was raising 4 children, and my husband was a CPA, and I walked into the church one day, and Marion's very lovely voice wanted me to join her international training communication, as we called it. And the way she asked you, you just couldn't say no to your mother. Couldn't say no. And I didn't know a thing about it, but it was all parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, and we had to write speeches, and I was just graduating, or I was in school, actually. I went to school raising my children. It took me 10 years, nights to get my undergraduate degree. But I was very interested in child development, and I fell madly in love without appreciation. I would just as soon be in a museum when I pass. I would just love art. I just love observing it. And I'm soon leaving for Spain, and I hope I get to the Prado. But anyway, make a long story short, Marion had us go. We went everywhere. We traveled to Reno, Nevada. We went to California, San Francisco on conferences for ITC. We went to. I remember taking Ginny Perry, a former member of our church, up to Moncton, Maine, Canada, and we just had conferences everywhere. We were always in Connecticut, and somehow my children all graduated from college, and we all made it together. I graduated 1 year from college before my son from Tulane University. So it really broadened me to meet these women that we all had to do really serious delving into research on a book or whatever to keep up our skills. And it was a wonderful way to communicate. But I thank Marion for her gentle ways.
Thank you.
I just want to add to that. Jenny Perry was a member. She was Marion's best friend.
Right.
And she was a member of International Training and Communication. It used to be called Toastmasters, but they changed the name along the way. And Aunt Marion was also responsible for pulling me into that group. So we had a lot of fun. We went to conferences. We were in speech competitions. She won the writing competition, is my understanding, my recollection anyway, from at one of the national conferences. So she impacted a lot of lives in this area, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful she was my auntie.
Yeah, right.
Well, one of her favorite expressions was she had a PhD. And that was past having doubt that God would provide.
Amen.
And she also would have, she and her sisters would all harmonize, and they would sing Sentimental Journey. And Jeff Pastor Jeff would play that for her, and when she was in the nursing home. And she had favorite songs that she would have him play, and she would sing along. Pastor Jeff?
Well, I'd like to just say, first of all, I think that we need to give Joyce a little round of applause for all that she's doing. This is an emotional tribute to her mom, who would be having a birthday a week from tomorrow. And so it's heavy, you know. One thing about Marion, she had been a member of this church for decades, and she was a historian. Most of all, she was a Christian. She loved the Lord. She believed very strongly in the Lord. She was faithful to the Tuesday morning Bible study. And the whole family, it's a tribute to the whole family, really. You know, seeing all of you here today, it just warms my heart to see everybody in the family here and to celebrate not just Marion's life, but the family, the legacy of the family. And because she was a historian, and as was your father, you know, he was very much involved in the civil rights movement, and so it's something that I'm very proud to know of your family, and particularly the legacy that they've had in this Hingham area. So my hope is that we hold on, we learn as much as we can. And you know, those videos that you were talking of, the things we want to
YouTube.
definitely YouTube. We need to put a little blurb on email to remind everybody where they are, what they are, so we can go and look at them. And you know, from my own personal vantage point, my dad was a diplomat in the Foreign Service, so I grew up in Germany. But it wasn't until Dad was, you know, almost dying that he started talking about his life and his younger experiences. And I just think that that's really important. And, you know, as we would get, you know, I'm looking at you, I'm reminiscing about all those Sunday afternoons, you know, just, it was fabulous. It was just amazing. The intimacy, the camaraderie, and just hearing different stories about all kinds of things. But also, she was a historian. She knew dates and things that had happened throughout the decades. And I'm a witness. I heard her recite the Gettysburg Address many times. I was like dumbfounded. So I just wanted to say that. And a little bit later on, I'll play some piano when we're snacking on all this good food. But I thank you, Joyce, for doing this.
Oh, I thought we were gonna play the video so that we could probably see some of the
The
history.
video is recorded. They can look at it at their leisure, so they can spend some more time. Today was about more you speaking on her as an entrepreneur in the Women's History Month. Can we have some more testimonies, and then we're gonna break out to eat and
Yeah, I will offer one story. Again, sequentially, after Bob and Marion got married quite quickly, they did live in Paris, Tennessee for a while, and I remember Marion reflecting on that because that was where Bob was from. And of course, she was a Yankee. And so going there, that was a story. But I remember one account in particular. You talk about her history. She would love to pull out the binder of all the news clippings of Bob and his activity in the civil rights movement. And Bob, as I remember and experienced, he was the master of understatement. And but Marion would help fill in the wider story. And one of the statements that Bob at one time made to me was he said, well, we all during we were talking about the civil rights movement and MLK and et cetera, and he said, well, we all did our part. And Marion, I don't know if it was then or later that Marion shared with me, while they were living in Portsmouth, Bob was the president of the NAACP.
NAACP.
Portland, Maine.
Portland, I'm sorry, I have a my sister-in-law's in Portsmouth, so I get confused. It's a P name. So at any rate, Portland, Maine, they lived in Portland, Maine. Bob was the chairman of the NAACP during the motion, and it was published in the Portland paper, and as I remember, Marion had the clipping, that in anticipation of the parade, that there was somebody who was threatening to shoot into the parade and especially target the leaders. And so Bob, they had a large banner, and Bob was one of however many, at the time most likely men, were carrying the banner leading off the parade. And I sat there and I said, wow, that's really something. And again, Bob said he just did his part, but at any rate, that was part of his part. And I remember saying to Marion, well, Marion, did you march as well? And she goes, no. I'm a scaredy cat. I didn't march. So, at any rate, but again, they each carried, and their leadership and their presence and their integration of their heritage and who they were with their identity was it came out. And I know I especially worked with Bob because he was council chair, and as a young pastor, he was very helpful to really come alongside of me and be an encouragement. With leadership, and he was a true leader. And Marion, again, was very, very supportive as well. So it's with great fondness I remember them both.
He also was part of the Walk for Communities that they have around here. Walk for Hunger, I think it was.
Was it Good Friday Walk?
Good Friday Walk.
Yeah.
He was involved with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Laura and Al,
Albert
there
Ross.
were members of the South Shore Citizens Club, also and an extension of our family on the South Shore. Would you like to speak?
Well, we first met Marion and Bob, I think it was about 1968 when we moved to Weymouth, Massachusetts. And they got us involved in the South Shore Citizens Club. And we were members of the South Shore Citizens Club until demise. I'm not sure of the exact number of years, but a number of years until its demise. And I became the treasurer of the South Shore Citizens Club. But during that time, they were very kind and very generous to us with their information and their knowledge. And we became just a part of their family. So we're grateful for the time that we spent with them and the fact that we are still here after they left us, but we still carry with us some of the information and the knowledge that they left with us. So we're thankful for that.
Thank you. Any other words or memories anyone would like to share?
I
And
hate
then
to
we
speak-
will
I hate
have,
to speak again,
then
but
we'll eat.
I just have to say, my husband just loved Bob. I mean, in fact, they both ended up with cancer treatments together, and they would drive each other to their treatments, and they became closer for that too. It's a wonderful relationship with Bob and Marion.
Thank you. All right, any other comments, memories?
I have a question
Yeah.
for you, Victoria. You said there are 5 videos that are available on YouTube. I'm just wondering, there were the 2 done by the Historical Commission.
And then there was some added that talked about, one of the cousins.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole, so it's like 5 different
Oh, good.
series that show up when you go under Tutleville.
Okay. Yeah, the ones I can speak to are the ones produced by the Historical Commission. And the first video talks about the family and, the history of the family in Tutleville. And the second video goes the discussion leans toward the Native American part of the family. So they're fascinating in here. So I hope you do take the opportunity to watch them, and I'm sure whatever the other three are too.
Yeah, one is just my grandmother, like, it's a combination of her speaking and then talking about her and the historian work that she's done, and it's like a tribute to her. And then starts the Tutleville, and then there's one about, I think he was a firefighter or a police officer.
Oh, it was about Louis Benito.
Okay.
He was the first black police officer here in Hingham.
That's her first cousin.
And
He was her first cousin.
he was the Officer Beck, who was Judy's father,
yes.
was instrumental in getting him as the first black. And I don't think we've had any other blacks since then, per se.
No, there are other
Yeah, no,
blacks
there are.
on the force now.
I haven't seen
Young
any.
people. In fact, one of them was from Ward Street. Yeah.
It's because
She
you don't
was
get,
Puerto Rican.
yeah, you don't get pulled over enough, Joyce.
All right.
She worked.
So we have,
Oh, she was on the police, yeah. Heaven, that's
she didn't want to say anything.
Okay.
So again, we want to thank everyone for coming. We do have some croissant sandwiches, some desserts, drinks, coffee. Would love to fellowship with everyone, and then we're gonna have Pastor Jeff play some of my grandmother's favorite songs. And again, we want to thank you for coming out today. This was important to my grandmother. She always said, you know, make sure that people know the history and keep the family together. So, you know, as part of that, every year, my mom has spoken with the town of Hingham. She does a presentation. The first year was over 50 people, standing room only. She did it last year. This year was snowed out, so we're going to reschedule. We also went to Linden Ponds. It was standing room only. So people want to know the history. They want to know more about these people that lived on Ward Street and what does this sign mean. And, you know, just about how they started, why it was important, and then again, now sharing this history. Just like he said, you know, he didn't know until later on that he was a part of the Native American culture. So it's important as these young people come up that they know their history as well.
Yeah.
Anyone else
Yeah.
have questions or?
All right, if we could have Pastor Jeff say a few words before we eat, and then we'll have Pastor Jeff.
Well, one of the things about the history that I wasn't really sure of is that the barn was part of the Renaissance and the
So the barn dances had a wide reach. They were advertised in the black newspapers across the country and reported on. And so this area was a regional hub for
Like a USO.
So it was a real center of culture and community. And so you would have, for example, during the Harlem Renaissance, a well-known band from the Harlem Renaissance coming and playing at the barn, and it was advertised in the papers. And so, so it was quite well known in the black community and important as well.
And I've met people living in Brockton that I said, oh, my mom lives in Hingham. They're like, Hingham? What's your mom's name? Oh, we used to go to those parties. And they said it would be like carloads of people coming from all over.
Joyce,
Todd?
one of the amazing things as I've been thinking about this incredibly rich history,
I found the diary and I gave it to Todd, and he's researching a lot of the
Yeah, let him share.
Okay.
If you
Go.
want. Well, anyway, it just struck me that in history on both sides of the family, the Tuttles and also, you know, the Simpsons, and the connection to the Wampanoag tribes and the Narragansetts, and that this family really goes back not only to the Civil War, to the Revolutionary War, but thousands of years in this place. And that's pretty amazing. And they were connected to the same Native Americans that helped the Pilgrims survive. And so, because we're in Plymouth County after all. And so if you really think about it, Ward Street and Tutleville is a small community that had national reach in the black community, but was also ancestral lands that go back thousands of years connected to this family. And so I think that's pretty incredible too.
And that was Mummy's, she wanted everyone to know that how important our family has been to this community.
And so he was able to take the diary and read through it, type up some of the things, blow up some of the documentary that was in there, and go to the library and get actual pictures of these different things. And so he's got about 2 manuscripts that he's working on, educationally publishing and using as an educational tool. But what we said is that, you know, through this is so much history. This would be great if it could be put into a book or like a mini movie, because there's a lot of history that people just don't know about that happened right here in Massachusetts.
I had one story I want to tell. Sure. I was fortunate enough to work. I used to have a stainless steel company, and I was in charge of doing the catalog. And my grandfather, Mr. Livingston, introduced me to a gentleman in Boston. His name was Morton Bartlett. And Morton Bartlett was one of the last direct relatives of the Mayflower that came over from England. I didn't know all this at the time. I'm just a kid. So I would go to Morton's house in Boston on Warren Ave, and we would work on this catalog. And so, you know, I was there almost probably for a whole summer. I was there every week working with Morton, getting to know his cat and his family of statues in the backyard. He had all these, he was an artist also, he had all these carvings of his family. He said, would you like to be my family? And I said, sure. And I go out and all his family was statues in his garden out in the backyard. And so Morton would keep telling me the value of his condo. He'd say, Nick, you know, this place is probably worth $300,000. And I go, yeah, Morty, come on, let's get back to work. So Morton and I parted ways after we finished the catalog. He passed away. I'm sitting in my office in Hingham at Allstate, and I got a phone call. And the phone call came from the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And they said, this is Nicholas Roundtree. I says, it is. He said, he's sitting down. I said, well, I could sit down. He says, well, you want to sit down when I tell you the story. And I said, okay, I'm sitting down. Go ahead. He goes, do you remember a man named Morton Bartlett? And I said, oh, yeah, Uncle Morty. Because at this point, I figured he had passed away. And he goes, he wasn't your uncle. I go, so sure he was, you know. And we were having a good laugh about it. And he said, are you sitting down? And I said, well, yeah, I'm sitting down. Why do you keep asking me that? He goes, well, I want to ask you about Morton's family. Did you know them? Oh, I knew his mother and his sisters and his dad. And I knew his whole family. And he starts laughing. He goes, you know, they're all carved in stone. And I said, yeah, that's how I met them. This went on. And this guy from the Smithsonian is now laughing. He goes, you really do know their family? Of course I do. I said, now how was Uncle Mort? He goes, well, he wasn't your uncle, and you know he passed away, and da-da-da. He said, yeah, he was like 100 when I was working with him. I said, well, what's going on? He goes, well, are you sitting down? I said, why do you keep asking me that? He says, well, he left $291 million to the Children's Fund.
Wow.
I said, well, he meant to give me that last $1 million. Because Morty was into even numbers, you know, and the guy starts laughing. I said, well, I think it's only appropriate. Where am I going to get this $1 million?
Yeah.
And he's laughing, he's telling me the whole story. But he is buried in the Bartletts. If you go to the cemetery, the top of the hill over by the Plymouth Rock, the whole top of that thing is all Bartletts. And it's like, he was the last one of that heritage to go into that cemetery. And I just thought that was a fun story. Yeah.
Marion also sold, on Ward Street, in the back. They said every time they broke up the black rock,
Yep.
the rock would go
Go
back
back.
together.
That's, yeah.
And they
God bless.
thought that that was burial ground for the Native Americans in
Yep.
the area. And it was farmland also, and they would call Auntie, which is Karen's mother, and said that they'd break up the black rock, and it would, after so many hours or so, it would go back
And
together.
the tractors that they left out there, they'd come back the next morning and they're circling and running all by themselves.
And one of the things we do with the Hingham Militia is we attend ceremonies of things that people find from history. And right now, they're going around and they're digging up the areas where men from the Civil War were actually buried, and their graves have all grown over. And they're all registered, but they're in the woods in places that you wouldn't imagine, on walking trails, and now they're cleaning them up, and we're giving presentations to those guys. And,
That's nice.
and I've been asked to now join the 54th, so they want me to march with them. They asked me on Sunday, because I was in another parade. So they want me to get involved with that, and I might have to do that. We'll see. But very busy, a lot of history come up. There's a lot of history like right here in this area from in this community, right across the street. So,
All right, so we'll stop so that we can go ahead and enjoy the food and enjoy some music.
there you go.
If you stop doing what you were
Are you gonna say something, Jen? No, okay.